Live from Beit Shemesh and broadcasted around the world, you are listening to the Frum Entrepreneur podcast with your host, Nachum Kligman. Interviews and advice from Jewish entrepreneurs from around the world. Listen, learn, be Matzliach.
Welcome to episode 43 of the Frum Entrepreneur. Now, I've got a little bit of a surprise for you. Today, it's Daniel Gefen interviewing Nachum Kligman. Nachum, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Daniel.
It's an absolute pleasure. This is very weird, Nachum, because this is your show and I'm interviewing you.
Yes, that is actually happening. First of all, I appreciate... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you interviewed me on your show. What episode was it again?
Oh, it was, it was one of the best episodes we ever did.
Absolutely, but you should remember every single episode. So
how much? I have 43 episodes. You think I remember every single one? I think Untitled Chapter was number 2. That was easy.
Wow.
The Video Sparks guys were number 1. Oh no, Dove Gordon was number 1. Video Sparks was 2. Untitled Chapter was 3, and then everything else is just like
a blur.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I hear. Very cool.
Well, why are you interviewing me on my own show?
I have absolutely no clue. Do you want to tell the audience why I'm doing this?
I will tell everybody why you're interviewing me. Basically, it's like this. For a long time, there's a couple of reasons, but mainly for a long time, people have said, hey, we want to hear more about you. It's great you interview all these awesome entrepreneurs. We want to learn more about you and your story. And I've been putting it off for a while because I wanted to wait for a good opportunity. And I've been working on a couple of great projects. One is a book that I just published, and the other is a new startup. So I said, now would be a great time to be interviewed. And rather than interviewing myself, because that would be awkward, I decided to take my protege, the great Daniel Gefen, to do the interview for me. Oh, you are awesome. First of all, I want to introduce Daniel. Those of you know him because you listened to the podcast episode. But actually, since that episode, Daniel started his own podcast called
Can I Pick Your Brain?
Can I Pick Your Brain? And where he interviews also awesome entrepreneurs, not necessarily Jewish, but awesome. And he does an awesome job. And he really, knows how to run an interview. So I said, you know what, Daniel, I'm welcoming you back to my show and you're going to interview me.
Well,
and you were all into it, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Well, one thing you left out, Nachum, is that you're the one that trained me to start the podcast show. And in fact, I had this idea of doing a podcast because Nachum approached me to have me on his show, and I enjoyed being a guest on the show so much that I thought to myself afterwards, like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. So I said to Nachum after, Nachum, how do I start a podcast show? And Nachum said, well, I could teach you. And literally within 2 weeks, I had my first episode up. And that was about, I think, was it 7 months ago, Nachum? About 7 months ago?
Yeah, something like that.
So now I've had 20,000 downloads and we've done about 45 episodes. So thank you, Nachum.
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't want people to get discouraged because what you did is not normal. Usually, if I train somebody, I'm teaching them, it'll take them months before they really get ready and get everything up and rolling. But you were a natural at this. You were perfect voice, perfect attitude, perfect personality. And plus your episodes keep getting better with every episode. So obviously I'm going to link to your show and my show, which is the show that you're hosting now with interviewing me. But yeah, but it's, so let's rock and roll. Let's get going.
Enough about me, Nachum. Let's find out more about you. So what was your background? Tell us a little bit about little Nachum.
Little Nachum. Well, so first of all, I was born and raised in Passaic, New Jersey. I went to Hill Academy as a kid, and then people ask me, well, what people who live in Passaic now for 20 years, 30 years, I say, you know what, I was born there. I went to Hill Academy. My mother was born in Passaic and went to Hill Academy, which is now Yeshiva Beit Hillel. Mm-hmm. And my great grandfather actually came over to Passaic in the 1920s. So my family goes way back, Passaic almost 100 years now to Passaic. Mm-hmm. I was, I went to high school, JEC, MTA. I actually dropped out of high school because it was too boring for me.
How old were you?
17, 16.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 16. I'm not book smart, but I'm very, very street smart. And what I did is I enrolled myself in college. It was supposed to be my senior year of high school. And, that was actually, a brilliant move on my part because it was more like I was in control of myself. If I did my homework, I didn't do my homework. Nobody said anything. I was responsible for myself to show up to classes. If I didn't, nobody called my mom to say, hey, how come you didn't show up? It was just like a whole different atmosphere for me, and I flourished in college. Although I was only there for a year, but then Israel came calling, and I ended up going there for the year, which ended up being 5 years.
So for those listening that are not familiar with Hillel, people are listening from Europe and other countries, can you explain what Hillel is? It a Frum organization?
Yeah, Hillel Academy is modern Orthodox grade school. I went there from nursery actually through 8th grade, graduated there, and then went to high school.
So do you think you were always a Frum entrepreneur?
Well, I was always Frum, and I was always an entrepreneur. So, I think so. I mean, truthfully, if you want to talk about what makes an entrepreneur, and like someone just asked me recently, can you be trained to be an entrepreneur? And it's not something really you could be trained with. Being an entrepreneur, it's a certain personality. It's a certain, I don't know what to say, I guess personality or skill set that you need in order to be able to succeed. And, I was always very entrepreneurial. I used to do, I was one of the best babysitters, growing up in Passaic. I was probably the only male babysitter, but people loved me. The kids loved me. But I also used to shovel snow when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, for $5 a house. It's $8 if it's with a driveway. It was, so I was always into making money. In high school, I was selling baseball cards. I used to go to trade shows. As a matter of fact, Gary Vaynerchuk, who, some of those listeners out there know, he was very big into baseball cards in the same area. We actually went to the same trade shows, and I actually remember him as a young kid.
No way.
I think he's a year younger than me or something, but we were like the youngest kids at these trade shows, in Parsippany, New Jersey. At the Sheraton or something like that. And he was this other like little, young kid that was like had their own booth, selling cards and stuff. And so I was, I made a lot of money actually back in the day with baseball cards. And, so I've always really been entrepreneurial.
I find interesting also on my show as well, a lot of my guests, they talk about their background and how, when they were 7 years old, they started their first business and they started this. And I'm kind of sitting there going, well, I didn't do that. I mean, I basically didn't do anything until I was about 23 years old. Like my whole childhood was pretty much, daddy give me money, and he gave me money. So,
right.
So I don't know if necessarily just because a person, didn't have all these different jobs, when they were younger means that they're not an entrepreneur. I think that,
Oh, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not about your experience whenever you start, but it's about a personality.
Correct.
And you always had the personality. I mean, you were into Kiruv for a while.
Correct.
And, it takes a lot to be able to stand up in front of people, and you were selling them.
Right.
What you were selling was the most amazing product the world has ever,
I was selling when I was 4 years old. I remember when I wanted something.
There you go. Go ahead.
I would scream my head off until my parents went and got it for me. I didn't give up. So, but what would you say, Nachum, I guess, I hear the word entrepreneur thrown around like it's like the word guru and all these other terms that you hear. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really mean anything to me. Like, if you were to define an entrepreneur without using the word entrepreneur, what does it take for a person to be an entrepreneur?
So there's a couple of things, but I think the main thing that comes to my mind is a lack of fear. Right. That's the first thing, is that you got to have a real lack of fear, because, fear is what holds most people back from trying something new. People are afraid of what others are going to say about them. People are afraid of failing. Right. And so I think there is a lot of risk taking in being an entrepreneur. Most people are happy just having a safe job, working 9 to 5 for somebody, coming home with a paycheck. But, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. But so I think it's a lack of fear. But also the other main thing is that someone who likes to be in control of his own destiny. Right. I always, growing up, and my parents could attest to this, I always had a problem with authority. Right. It was, I didn't feel like I felt it was my life. And maybe that's why, I didn't do so well in school, growing up, because I felt like, okay, who are the teachers to tell me what to do? Right.
Right.
I didn't like rules. I didn't like to be restricted. I liked it to be able to do my thing and go out and to create. And I was always a very creative kid, and creative person. So, I think that attitude of I just couldn't see myself working so hard to make someone else money if I could be making myself money. And I also, if a chag came up, or if, I wanted to go to, an event for one of my kids, I didn't have to ask somebody permission. Hey, can I take off from work this day? Or, can I go to my kid's, school to watch them on a play? I wanted to be able to make the decisions of doing what I wanted to do. And the third thing is being creative. right? Having ideas and visions and, you know, coming up with concepts and ideas and the drive and like what you mentioned before, you know, when, of always being selling and, you know, having that drive to not take no for an answer, to keep moving forward. And no matter how many ups and downs, to keep going and keep going until, you know, you can't do it anymore or until you're successful.
Right. And now you've built a very successful and valuable brand called Frum Entrepreneur. And it really, well, I think a lot of the listeners, obviously they know about the podcast, but you've also recently come out with a book called The Frum Entrepreneur, which has done really well. And you've also got webinars going on. You know, when did it all start? What gave you the idea to start this brand?
Okay, so there's two things. So first of all, you know, the Frum Entrepreneur, especially the podcast, the idea from it started, I had started an apparel company for special needs kids called Mianzi Fashion. My buddy and clockmaster, Eli Mondro, was my partner over there. And it was an incredible learning experience. And I put everything I could into it. I mean, this was a project of passion and, you know, putting in my heart and it was something I really believed in and I wanted to see succeed. And you know, sometimes things just don't go right. And, you know, manufacturing in China, as much as I tried to learn about it and to, you know, do it, I just kept getting messed over by the manufacturers and I had to switch manufacturers and everything else takes so long, you know, before you see a material and then they have to send you the material, then you have to check it and then you have to approve it. And then, you know, and just like, I once wrote down all the steps and from deciding on what article of clothing you want to make till a finished product on the stores, there was like 60 different steps.
Wow.
And
60.
And every step of the way, and you know, something could go wrong and there could be a delay and it may have nothing to do with you. So I went with a manufacturer that ended up messing me over, and then I went with another manufacturer, and then I got some investors that really messed me over, you know, broke their contract with us and basically put the company out of business.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so when I came out of that, I was just, you know, and I've done the startup thing, you know, on big projects, you know, four or five times, where you just put everything into it, you know, work the 18-hour days. And I was just burnt out after everything I'd gone through. I was just totally burnt out. And I said, you know what, I got to take off from this starting a business thing. And I said, you know what, let me take a breather. Let me see. I always loved helping people. I always loved giving business advice. People come to me all the time. And I said, you know, I did about 7 years ago, Nefesh asked me to do a seminar on entrepreneurship and starting a business. And so I did a seminar called, I think it was the 10 Commandments of Starting a Business.
That's funny.
Yeah. And people, and the feedback from that seminar was phenomenal. Like the people really loved it. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine now, Avi Zuber, was at that seminar and that's how we first met up. And you know Zuber? You ever met him? You must have met him, right?
I've heard of him.
Oh, you got to meet him. He's an awesome guy.
Very cool.
And the feedback from that was just phenomenal. And I was like, you know, this is some great material. And I said, you know, and I started planting my head. I said, why don't I take this and make it into a book? And so I wrote the first draft of what's now, the book is now called The Frum Entrepreneur.
Right. By the way, I have a copy of that book and I've been through it. And for those listening, if you haven't got a copy, you need to grab one, like right after this episode.
and because we're always selling, I'll put a link to where you can buy the copy. First of all, it's in stores, England, Australia, all over the States, Canada.
Wow.
But you can also buy it directly online from me at frumentrepreneur.com/book. But I'll put the links in the show notes. And so I decided that, you know, I wrote this first draft. Probably took me about 3 or 4 months. And it sat there. I didn't know if I was going to publish it or how I was going to do it. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm going to move forward. Oh, so I wrote this draft, and then a friend of mine actually was starting a business magazine, and he asked me if I would write for the magazine. And I said, you know what? I have this book. I'm not doing anything with it yet. Let me take chapters from the book, and I'll just copy and paste it and, you know, clean it up a little bit for a magazine and sent it in. And the feedback from those articles were fantastic. Even today, people said, "Oh, you used to write for Business Magazine, right?" I said, "Yeah," and people really related and loved the articles. So that gave me the motivation to really push the book forward. And so it was right before I was starting Mianzi, the apparel company, that I spoke with the publisher, and then right when I was ready to get started with them, I said, "You know what? I have this new company. Let me see what happens with it because I think it would be a great story for this book." And then, of course, after 2 years, when the company ultimately had to close, it wasn't such a great story for the book, although there is some important lessons from it. But So then when I finished that, and I said, you know what, let me do this podcast. Let me work on my book. And I said, and so I really cleaned up the book, Mosaica Press, publishing it, and they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
They took like all my notes, and the first thing they did was they took this book, which was probably at the time about 150 pages, whatever it was, and Doron tore it to pieces and made like over, I don't know, there were hundreds of requests and clarifications and asking to add something here, add something there. And so when I got that, guidance, I just reworked the book, and then when I was finished, it was still only like 90% done. And then they go through a whole editing process, and it gets edited and edited until, it has a smooth flow. And then when it came to the book design itself, the inside, like I wanted something that really stuck out. I wanted something different because this book is different. Even though it's geared towards a Frum world, really nothing like this has ever existed before, where it's a entrepreneurial book and a business book, how to, but through the eyes of a Frum person.
Mm-hmm.
And but I wanted the book to really stick out and to look beautiful. And they did a beautiful job. You can download a free chapter on my website as well, so you can see what I'm talking about. But they really did a phenomenal job, and I'm so excited. And the feedback already on this book has been tremendous. Now I'm getting calls and emails from people. As a matter of fact, I was just in my shiur. I go to a shiur every morning, and a couple of days ago I was in the shiur, and I was telling my Rebbe something about my book, and then someone else who was in the room, who was not part of the shiur, said, what book did you write? I said, it's called The Frum Entrepreneur. He says, oh, I bought it. I love it. And I want you to give classes on it. I was going to call you. It was just so funny. And it's really the most exciting thing. But so that was the first thing, like how it got started, how I came up with the idea.
Well, what I find really interesting, Nachum, though, is that you wrote this book before you started the podcast. So essentially the book was really the beginning of the Frum Entrepreneur.
That is true. I want to get to the foundation.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought you had the podcast show, which you called the Frum Entrepreneur, and then on the back of that, you decided to write a book. So it's very interesting. This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Oh, well, so on that, the original title of the book was not the Frum Entrepreneur.
Oh, what was it?
I don't know if I should tell you. Should I tell you?
Go on.
Okay, so the name of the original title, I actually have a book cover because someone designed it for me. They've all posted, Yoel Bender, who's a phenomenal designer.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He designed it. Oh, you've worked with you. Oh, right. Yeah. You know him from, Subs.
Yeah.
So he designed the original book cover. I'll post a copy of it because it's really cool. And it was called You Must Be an Idiot.
Oh, my goodness, you're joking me.
I promise you. And other things you need to know before starting a business.
I'm really glad you didn't go with that title.
Well, I wanted to, but Feldheim, who was distributing, they refused the title.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
But
the cool thing about it is that you could have had a sequel called You Must Be an Idiot Too.
That's actually very funny. I didn't even think about
great,
that.
Right?
That is great. Remind me to get that domain when we're done.
Yeah.
So what was happening was that besides the feedback from the original articles and from the original book I was doing, people were consulting with me all the time, and I wasn't doing consulting for money at the time, but because I did it like I took 10% of my mice or 10% of my time to be able to help people, because I really genuinely love helping people, and it hurt me so much to see people spending good money on bad ideas, or there could be good ideas, but they just don't know how to execute the ideas. And
you are a guy of ideas, aren't you? You're pretty much an ideas guy. I
would say if there was like one, I wouldn't say skill or one gift. Obviously, all my ideas are 1,000% from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I am very good. I'm very good. Hashem gives me great ideas all the time, and actually started sharing some of my free ideas and videos, which you can see on my website as well. I decided, after I'm tired and I'm sick and tired of always seeing like years later ideas I had someone else does like years later. Like for example, the latest one is Kofix. I came up with the idea for Kofix about 2 years before the first store even opened.
Oh man!
And it was like it was a dollar store for food and stuff. But I can't. And I write all my ideas down. I have a special file where I keep all my ideas, but I can't do every one of them. So I said, you know what, let me start giving out my ideas to people.
So let me ask you a question, Nachum, just to get practical here for the sake of our listeners, because I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this who they also have a lot of ideas. I mean, I'm also pretty much an ideas guy. I would say my creativity is one of my greatest gifts. But what do you say about there's an expression that ideas are worthless. They're a dime a dozen. I mean,
so you're right. And people say that. People say, and this is a long-standing fight, is it the idea or is it the execution? And I'm here to tell you that it really need both. But first of all, everything begins with an idea. If you don't have a good idea, you got nothing. And then execution, like I know a company, I'm not going to mention the name, but they were able to execute an original idea, fantastically. But then many years have passed and they weren't able to innovate. They had no new and fresh ideas. Mm-hmm. And so the product just sort of fizzled out. And you see that all the time. Just because you can execute something brilliantly and you have your MBA and you know how to, and you know your accounting and you know how to dot your I's and cross your T's doesn't mean you're always going to be innovative. And so you always do need, an innovator. You need an idea guy. You need somebody with vision and seeing where things are going, what's happening in the world, what's happening in technology, what's happening in your industry, being on top of things. So you're always innovating and staying fresh.
Right.
So go ahead.
I knew a guy who he was a good friend of mine. And every week, I mean, seriously, every week that I met him or I saw him in the store, in the park, wherever it was, he would always tell me, oh, I've got this new idea for a business. It's going to be worth millions, and he'd go on and on. Yeah. After about 20 times of hearing him say this, I kind of I felt sorry for him because he kept having these great business ideas, but every single other week he had another idea and he never really did anything with them. So what would your advice be to someone listening to this who has all of these ideas, but he just doesn't know how to take action? He doesn't know how to really, take those ideas and develop them into a successful business.
That is a fantastic question. And so I should clarify that, yes, you have to have the idea and you have to have the execution. But and going back to what we were discussing before about what is an entrepreneur is someone that takes the idea and makes it come to life, right? You're right. People have ideas all the time.
So let's get practical here, Nachum. When you say take it to life, because I hear a lot of, people say things like take it to life, make it happen, but that doesn't really tell the audience exactly what they need to do. What would be your first step? If you had someone coming into your office right now saying, Nachum, I've got this really good idea, and it is a good idea, because the truth is there's a lot of ideas out there that stink, and they're not going to go anywhere,
Right.
But let's say it is, so I guess the first step is is this a good idea? So first of all, how do you know if it's a good idea or not? And then take us to the next step of what they should do. What's the next action step?
So first of all, Baruch Hashem, I've become very, very good at understanding people's ideas and knowing, I hate, it's not like tooting my own horn. I don't like to do that, but I have become very good at understanding, if an idea is good or not.
How do you know if an idea is good? What do you do to find out?
It's just based on my all around knowledge, based on being on 25 years of being an experienced entrepreneur, of going through the ups and downs, of having failures and having successes and going through the grind and constantly learning everything. I actually, my book goes through all that. And in the book, I go through all the different steps, what you need. From the time you have an idea to how to launch it and be successful with it. So that's actually what the whole book is about. So if you want to go into deep detail, you should buy the book.
I've got a good idea. Nachum, because I want to get into the book Like a Boss, which is your latest venture. I want to get into that a little bit later. And I think when we get into that, maybe you could take us through the stages then. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that does. It's actually one of the things that I like is that I'm following my own rules in the book when launching a book Like a Boss. So,
okay, amazing. But so let's get back to again, the Frum Entrepreneur, because you were talking about how you had this idea for the book. You had a crazy title, which thank God, you didn't publish, okay, even though there's a great sequel to it. But you were writing the book, The Frum Entrepreneur. Then you came up with the idea for the podcast. How did that come about?
Oh, okay. So what happened is that I was saying before that people come to me all the time with their ideas and I give them help, but it just became too much. So first of all, one of the things I saw was that 90% of what I was telling everybody was coming to me was all the same thing. It was just 10% was tweaked to their specific idea or to their personality, but 90% of what I was saying over and over again, I said, you know what? I can't scale this because I'm only one person. I said, you know what? With my book, right? I could hit thousands of people at one time. And, this time someone comes to me and says, hey, I have this idea. I said, hey, read the book first and then let's talk.
And it lasts forever. And it lasts forever. Like in 20, 30, 40, 100 years from now, people could still be, picking up your book even after you're gone. I mean, Ad Me'er V'Esrim.
I hope so. I mean, about people still buying the book.
Right.
But, so that was one thing. That was one big motivator. And then, so when I told you, when I got burnt out from my last startup, I said, I want to take a breather. I love helping people. I was looking for something to do that, and I love entrepreneurship and I love talking to entrepreneurs. And I started looking around, and podcasting was just coming back into vogue, a couple of years ago or about a year and a half ago when I was starting this podcast. And, I just said, you know what, this is a great way. Let me interview other Frum entrepreneurs as a way to inspire people. So as part of my mission, and the Frum Entrepreneur's mission is to help people succeed. That's what I love to do. It's like, they say the highest form of tzedakah is giving somebody a job. Mm-hmm. So, if I could help people create companies or businesses, while following Derech HaTorah, but at the same time using common business sense, right? And knowledge that I've gained, and knowledge that we learned from other entrepreneurs that I speak about in the book, right? So then I can help people be successful, and they're going to hire more people. So it's like it's just, I love to help people. And this was a great way to do it. So I had the podcast. That was a great way to start it. And I said, I'm going to start working on my book, and Baruch Hashem, the book is published now. And the podcast has, is extremely well received. It's literally listened to all over the world. Although, of course, the majority is in America and Israel. But I had people in Asia listening to it consistently, because I'm able to track where you know how it is. So we could track where the episodes are being listened to.
Yeah. But why would an Asian listen to the Frum Entrepreneur? It's pretty interesting.
Well, it could be Chabad. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not.
It could be. Right.
I'm sure it's not Asians, but there are a lot of Frum.
I wonder what the word Frum means in Asia. Maybe it means like billionaire or something. The billionaire entrepreneur. They're probably like, billionaire entrepreneur, Frum.
That's why I could tell you just a quick funny story about that. When I was looking to name my apparel company, and I came to the word, and I came up with the word Mianzi, which meant a face of dignity and prestige in Swahili.
Right.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Face of dignity and prestige in Chinese.
Chinese, right.
Right. So I named the company Mianzi because, wow, we're building, dignity and prestige for our wearers, right? People with special needs. And when I went to China and I was meeting my manufacturers, and I was so proud of myself, I handed my business cards. And when going to China, it's a process. When you don't just hand over a business card like, here, check this out. There's like, you have to bow and you have to hand it over in two hands. They take it and you look at it, and it's like a whole process. And so, and whenever I give them and say, Mianzi, and they would look at it, and they were just so, and I kept waiting for the, wow, what a great name. And I never got that. And it wasn't until like 3 months later that I heard someone, in a video talk about Mianzi, because I would, get Google, results for anytime, anything with the word Mianzi came online. So I would get a news alert, right?
Yeah.
So I heard someone speak it, and it's not pronounced Mianzi. It's pronounced like Mianz or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm telling all these people in China, my company Mianzi, and I get no reaction. And it's totally because I'm just totally misread. I don't know why I thought Mianzi would be pronounced like that in China. I just assumed. And anyways,
listen, it could have been worse. I mean, Mianzi could have meant something completely offensive in China.
That is true. That is true.
That's brilliant.
That is true. Anyway, so I had the podcast, and I had the book, and now I started doing webinars, which is something, another way to really help from entrepreneurs. Whereas the podcast is inspirational, the book is like to do and how to follow. So the webinars are more detailed, like how to run Facebook ads, or how to do marketing, how to do, how to build your brand, how to, all these different topics that I'm going to be covering over the next months and years, hopefully. Right. And then,
Let me ask you a question, Nachum, about the podcast for a second, because your listeners, I'm sure they've wondered, how do you make money doing this? I mean, it's all very nice that Nachum is doing this service for the Frum entrepreneurs that are out there that want to listen to other entrepreneurs. It's a wonderful service that you do, Nachum, and you've had some amazing guests on here, especially one, I can't remember his name, I think Daniel Gefen.
Oh, from Jet Virtual.
Yeah. So, but how do you make money doing it? And I get this question all the time as well, especially from my wife. How are you going to make money with this podcast? So what? That's a great question. So the motivation when I did it was not necessarily to make money from the podcast itself. It really came from a place of, I wanted a break from starting companies, and I just want to do something that's interesting and that would be helpful to people. And so like I've had a couple of episodes where people sponsored the episode, and I did bring in some money that way. But someone that wants to make money in podcasting, and truth is, this has happened to me, even though it wasn't my
reason or goal, but it turns in I have made a lot of money from my podcast because I do business consulting, I do coaching. As I mentioned, I was about to mention that I'm also going to be doing online courses soon. And so people have contacted me I've built websites for people. So I've gotten a lot of business and a lot of coaching and consulting business because of the podcast. So technically I have made a lot of money because of it, but that wasn't the goal, the reason behind it. But for example, how do you make money? So now I have a book out, right? If I didn't do this podcast, and I didn't have tens of thousands of listeners, then it would be a lot harder to sell the book because nobody would have heard of me.
Right.
But now I have a built-in audience. People have heard of me, and I hope, and it's something, Gary Vaynerchuk always says, and he has a book, jab, 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 right hook, right? Give, 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 give. And then every now and then you could ask. And Gary's the master of this because he gives tremendous amount of content for free. But then when he comes out with a book, he asks people to buy a book. So I'm hoping that people will say, you know what, I gained a lot. I love his podcast. I love that he's not charging for it. He does other things for free. He's doing these webinars for free. So if he, hopefully someone will say, okay, you know what? Let me buy his book. It's a show of appreciation.
It's a law of reciprocity, right?
Right. So, and again, I hope, and the book hopefully will lead to other great things. But, as you sort of hinted to before, I have a new startup. And so I look at my startup life as really the way to make money. Although my coaching business and the web design business has been picking up lately, which I do through my main company, which is called IdeaGo. And actually, it's funny. You talk about the shoemakers, some that have shoes. I just launched a new website at ideago.com, but I haven't had time to finish writing out all the text, so it looks beautiful.
Oh boy!
But I have quite a few clients that I'm just trying to finish their sites. I'm launching this new company.
What is IdeaGo?
Go ahead.
What is? Can you just explain to the audience as well? What is IdeaGo?
IdeaGo. It's where ideas go. Right? That's the line. It's like a startup lab. It's like, if somebody has an idea. So it's my consulting arm and my web design arm and branding arm. So if someone says, hey, I have this great idea, so I'll run the consulting side of the business through IdeaGo and the web design and everything like that. So that's more of a real business, whereas the Frum Entrepreneur stuff is more of just trying to help people,
right?
Help them succeed. And
you've also got involved with something called Nextdoor as well.
Yeah, Nextdoor. There's a couple episodes on it. I'll link to if people want to hear more. But Nextdoor was invented or created by Hanan Kaufman, and I have the chus to be a co-founder of Nextdoor. And actually, he came to me originally. I was to help him launch it, and I came up with the name Nextdoor. I came up with the branding. I built the first website for them, and did a lot of work with Hanan. And now it's phenomenal because we do. What Nextdoor is an organization to help other organizations, Jewish organizations, either get started or to revamp themselves or to help them succeed. So in terms of, giving time for chesed, being able to work with Nextdoor and help other nonprofits succeed. First of all, you're creating parnasa for people, but also whatever the mission of that nonprofit, you're getting a share in this list from helping. So, and we have a phenomenal amount of experts that come in and help these nonprofits. And we just had an accelerator program. We had 2 in Yerushalayim, 3 for Yerushalayim, 1 for men, 1 for women, and 1 for Roshei Kollel. And we also had a program in New York that was all very successful. And so it's great to be part of that as well.
That's incredible. Any other projects that you're involved in as well?
It's funny. I try not to, and especially with my new project, which we should get to.
We're going to get into that. Yeah,
we're going to get into it next. But between IdeaGo, Nextdoor, my web design consulting, coaching,
podcast,
my book,
the podcast show,
the webinars,
right?
So, and then my new startup. So and the fact that, I learn, Baruch Hashem, I learn every morning for about an hour and a half and, learn Daf Yomi at night and going to shul and trying to spend time with
How do you have time for all of this, Nachum? I mean,
it's actually right now it's at the point of a little bit of insanity. So,
okay.
I'm trying to streamline the process a lot more, especially in the web design elements and, things that don't take up my own personal time. Like if I could if I could be the visionary and branding part of designing a website, but then I have a team of people that I use to actually develop the website. So then, my personal involvement may only be in an hour or two. where the project may be a 30-hour project or a 50-hour project. So that's one way. But I am cutting down because of my new startup. I am cutting down on the other stuff, finishing off some projects. Next door is a labor of love. And I guess when you're passionate and you just love what you're doing, it doesn't seem like work.
Right.
So I'm sure you know that yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And you're obviously very excited about your new startup. So let's get into that. It's called Book Like a Boss, which I absolutely love the name Book Like a Boss. I guess tell us first of all, what is it and how did you come up with the idea for this?
Okay, great. So first of all, I didn't come up with the name. One of my partners, W. Kowitz, actually came up with the name, which is surprising because I'm always the one that comes up with great names. But
yeah, well, you would have probably come up with Book Like an Idiot or something, right?
Well, we came up, when we were brainstorming, names, like we came up with like a list of like 50, 60 names. And then when he came up with this one, it was just like, yeah, that's awesome. Book Like a Boss.
Boom.
That was great. So Book Like a Boss is an all-in-one booking system. Basically, you get a web page, bookme.name/Nachum. Let's say that's my page. And you could come in and someone could come and they could book learn about you, book a package and pay for it all in one place. And it takes about 10 minutes to set up. And it was funny. I'll tell you how I came up with the idea. It was really twofold. One was, as I mentioned before, people are coming to me all the time for advice, and I still have it. I get emails every week with people asking me for business advice and stuff. And I hate to turn people down, but at the same time, I want people to know that I have to charge for my time. And that I just can't give, one-on-one free advice anymore as much as I want to. So I said, I wish there was a way, and I have websites, like I have a WordPress website, Nachum.co, which tells about me and stuff, and people contact me. But I wanted, to say, hey, this is what I do, and I charge for my time, and here, book me for my time and pay me for my time. And that didn't exist. Of course, and even though I knew about web development and WordPress sites, I don't know, it costs laziness or whatever you want to call it. But even though there are calendar apps that you can integrate into a WordPress site, but you'd have to integrate the calendar, then you have to integrate payment systems, and then you have to integrate, everything. And I said, you know what? I wish there was just a one-page thing where I could just easily just send people to, which says what I do and allows them to book me and pay me all in one place. And it didn't exist. So at the same time that I'm thinking about this idea, and I'm like, and I'm wishing that it existed, I get an email from Rabbi Dan Roth from TorahLive.com.
Oh yeah, I know Dan.
Yeah, he's an awesome individual. What they do at Torah Live is phenomenal. Actually, there's a podcast episode with him also from Entrepreneur, so I'll link to that.
Cool.
So he sends me an email, says, listen, my sister is a masseuse out of Efrat, and she's looking for a one-page, an easy way to be able to take bookings for her business. And can you help her out with that? And I look at it and I see exactly what she needs. She's not technical. She wants something that's just easy, that tells you who you are, what you do, and to be able to, and it didn't exist. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And at the same time, a close friend of mine, W. Kowitz, he had just got freed up from a job that didn't exactly work out, but that's a whole nother story. It's actually an incredible story that I can never tell. But my son, we were talking, and I said, I have this idea. I think it would be great to do, and he loved it, and we decided to do it together. And then we brought on a designer, Lloyd Schroeder, who I've been following for a couple of years. He's done some phenomenal design. And so the three of us became partners, and we just launched this Book Like a Boss. So, and it doesn't exist yet. And now it does, but it's kind of like, to me, what LinkedIn should have been. Like, LinkedIn became huge, and obviously they just sold for billions of dollars to Microsoft. But, you spend all this time getting people to come to your LinkedIn profile, but there's no call to action, right? I said, you know what if, here you could read about the person, see photos of the person, and then see what are the services they offer, and then book them. Right. And you could manage the whole process from this website. We give you we want to make it easy because there's two markets that we're actually going after. Okay. The first is the market of people that already have an existing business where they need to make appointments, whether it's real estate or electricians, plumbers, accountants, tutors, music teachers, personal chefs, whatever it is, people that want a way to be able to be booked, right? And they understand that. But then there's a whole nother shift in the market. There's a whole nother thing going on, right? Called side gigging and side hustling, right? You look it up. You just do a search on Google for side hustle or for side gig, and there's article after article coming out. People looking to make money on the side.
Like Fiverr.com.
How do I make money on the side? Like Uber drivers and Airbnb and this
like
whole
Fiverr as well.
Fiverr, right? Yeah. This whole movement of people trying to make some extra bucks because, people are not able to make it on regular salaries, and people want to have the dream to be able to build something on the side while they're still getting their paycheck.
Right.
Right. So this is the perfect tool for them. Right, let's say a college kid, right? You have a college kid that can do tutoring. He could wash your car. He could walk your dog. He could, whatever it is he could do. But he's not going to build a website that says, hey, I can walk my dog, or I can, and he may have a Facebook page, or he may have, but what if there was an easy way for this college kid to say, hey, I do tutoring. I wash cars. Wow. I will walk your dog. I'll mow your lawn.
It's a great idea.
And that he could put up the page and give the packages. This is what I charge, and he could collect money, via PayPal or a credit card, right? And he could get started and do this all in 10 minutes. I said, what college kid would want to do that? So it was with that in mind. Also, the senior. What? I'm sorry.
How much would that cost them to
to get started? It's actually absolutely free.
Oh, wow.
You can get started. We have 3 different plans. We have what we call our basic boss, small boss, and big boss plan, and we want people to get started and see the value in our software. So in the basic boss, there's no monthly fee.
Right.
And we give you like 5 free, bookings per month. So 5 free bookings. And once you see that, hey, this is great, how easy it is, and you start getting some bookings, so then we'll charge you $2 per booking for every booking after those 5 free ones. And then, of course, we have plans at $8 and $15 with more features, unlimited bookings, etc. So, but also the other market, talking about college kids, but the other thing was seniors, right? There are a lot of people out there in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s that have tremendous amount of knowledge. Right. So we wanted to create maybe they want to share that knowledge. Maybe they want to give, lectures, or they want to speak, or they want to, do tutoring or give classes or whatever it is. And so we wanted to make it easy enough for older people, to use as well. And, my team just did absolutely phenomenal job in bringing this to fruition. We just launched the beta version, just about a week ago. And, I didn't even we're not even telling that many people yet, because we still have more features. And we have a list of features and things we're going to be doing that's going to take us, a while to really fulfill. But
can you share with us some of those features that are coming out?
Do I want to tell all our secrets?
Come on, Nachum.
Okay. So
tease us a bit.
So one of the things, well, first of all, right now we only have the basic plan live, but in about a month or so you'll be able to upgrade to the small boss and big boss.
I love your pricing structure, by the way, because who wants to be a small boss, right? Everybody wants to be a big boss. So
exactly,
it's great,
exactly.
Great psychological pricing there. Very well done, Nachum.
Well, that was the other thing. We wanted to also keep it very inexpensive. Like we could charge. People have already told us that we got some feedback said, "Hey, you could charge a lot more for this." But we said we don't want to charge more. We want to have a lot of people using this because we have big ideas for the future of where this is going to go with it. And so having a lot of people using it is one of the things that we want. But that being said, so we're going to be integrating Google Calendar and iCalendar for the paid plans. That's coming out soon. We're also going to allow people to, right now it's only in dollars, but soon you'll be able to take shekels and pounds and, multiple currencies. We have plans to translate it into other languages. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working on. We're also going to have discount coupons where you can, you'll be able to see a list of your clients, people that have booked you, and you'll be able to instantly offer them discounts for future orders.
Oh, wow. That's very smart.
Yeah, and plus lots of stats. I mean, we have tons of stuff we're going to be putting in. Right now, it's funny because we're a small team. It's just the 3 of us right now. And it's incredible what we were able to do in such a short period of time, because really David, and kudos. I mean, Lloyd is a phenomenal designer, and it's so amazing to have him. But David is like really, I was so lucky to get him because he is one of the most phenomenal programmers I've ever worked with. And he is so fast and so good. And he makes, and I promise, I was just kidding with him the other day. He doesn't code with bugs. He doesn't code with bugs. Like, and it's so true. And he did it super fast also. That from the time, we calculate the hours. He was calculating the hours it took. It took him less than 2.5 months to build this thing.
Nah, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That is super fast.
And the funny thing is, we're all doing, like, Lloyd has his customers, I have my customers, and David has his customers. So it's funny. This was a side hustle project for us on the side.
Wow.
To help other side hustlers.
So Nachum, I want to pick apart the process just for those listening who are either starting a business or want to really scale their business, because this looks like a perfect model because it's extremely scalable. I love the fact that what you did was you partnered with 2 key partners who you needed to get on board in order so that you didn't need to invest a ton of money, because something like this would have cost you a packet to be able to do if you didn't have them as partners on board. So I'm loving the whole business model. Can we go and really from the beginning of the process to go through, first of all, how long from idea to completion, how long was the whole process?
So the whole I came up with the idea probably about 7-8 months ago or so. I can check the email I got from Rabbi Dan Roth, to get the exact date. Although, this personal need that I had has been going on for years. Right. And wanting a solution for it. But then when I got that email, it just said, oh my gosh, there's a real pain in the market that's not being filled. And that's when I started, researching. Like, that was the first thing I did.
Okay, so let's go into that. So you've got an idea, okay, and then you go into researching. How do you research the idea? How do you know it's gonna fly?
So the first thing I did was I searched for calendar apps on Google, and whether it was apps that were made specifically for WordPress, or it's apps for smartphones, or websites that offered you calendar service, and so then you take take the top 30 and you go through them and you see what features they have. You see, do they offer you an easy way to create a website? And you spend hours and hours and days researching, and there was just nothing out there like it. They just didn't exist. And, I've gotten very good at being able to research an idea, and I saw that it just didn't exist. Like, you have Wix. Right. And you could build a Wix site, and you could integrate with different apps that they have, and they have a calendar app, and then you could integrate payment processing. But even building a Wix site, it could take you, days or weeks to do. And it's not as simple, and it's not purpose. Like, everything we're building, everything we're doing is to help you run your entire business. It's not just, hey, you can take bookings, but it's actually the things we're doing enables you to run your whole side gig or your whole full gig. Right? If this is a full-time business for you, we want to make it easy. So you see your stats, you see, your bookings, you can run your whole business from this website.
Okay, but didn't exist. I want to ask you two questions based on the researching. First of all, you mentioned that you spent a couple of weeks researching, and sometimes it could take months. How long should a person really spend researching? Because I know people who, they have an idea and they could spend years researching, and by the time they actually come out with the product, it's already too late.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do an overkill in the research, because if you can't find a real solution in just a couple of days by spending a few hours searching online, then either the solution doesn't exist, or whoever did it did such a poor job of getting out there that there's a huge opportunity for you to get in and do it anyway. So spending years, that's just crazy. You got to be able to take action. You got to be able to move forward. You got an idea. You're pumped up about it. You do research and you see like nobody's doing it, right? So then you just got to move forward, right? Because if someone was doing it, and it was such a great idea, then you would probably have heard about it, or in your, hours of research, you would have come across it. Right. And if you didn't, then someone's doing something really, really wrong, or just doesn't exist. Right. So in our case, it just didn't exist. There was, like, the one that comes close, I think there's an app for your iPhone that does everything, but it doesn't give you a website. It doesn't give you that web presence. So, there's pieces all around, but there was nothing that just made it simple and easy that you could set up in 10 minutes and start taking bookings, right away. Like, a college kid is not going to use this iPhone app because it's made for a whole other industry. We're making this side hustle software. We're making this for, partly 50% of our target market is this new wave of people looking to make money on the side, and there was nothing targeting them.
Right. I also find that a lot of people, out of fear, they overanalyze, and they sit in research mode for way too long because they're too scared to launch, and they use that as sort of like, they're pulling the covers over their head. They just don't want to face it. They're too scared to. So, I would just say as well, practical advice for those listening is to really give yourself a deadline. Like mark a date in your calendar when you are going to launch. Like when me and Nachum I was gonna launch my podcast show, I said to myself, in 2 weeks, I'm coming out with the first episode. And in fact, not only that, but I made myself accountable because I told people about it. So when you've got an idea,
right. I remember you did
you tell people, by the way, guys, I'm launching this new product or this new service, and it's coming out, it's going to be available March 22nd, boom. Now you've got to produce. And so even if you're scared, you're going to have to do it. The other thing I was going to mention as well, Nachum, is that just because there are competitors out there already doing what you're doing doesn't mean that your idea can't grow and that you can't scale it into a successful business, because at the end of the day, there's hundreds of thousands of doctors and lawyers and real estate agents, and so you have to, I guess, test the size of the market as well as how much competition there is in the market. But moving on, so after
before we do, I want to make a comment on that, because I think that is a very important point.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that first of all, and you'll read about it in my book, and I talk about how coming up with something like, when you have an idea and you want to be successful on it, right? This world works al pi derech hateva, right? Hashem, Hashem tries to run things as much as possible without open miracles. Right? That's how he created the world. So al pi derech hateva, you have to have, the idea has to be a kli that can become successful in a big way if you want to have a big success, right? So obviously all success is all from Shemaim, all failures are all from Shemaim. You just have to do your stylus and put in your best effort, right? But if you want to create a project that's going to hopefully make millions of dollars, you're not going to be able to do that by selling shoelaces door to door. It's just not scalable. There's not enough profit margins. It's not going to work, right? So you have to create a proper kli that can do that. So you're right. In this industry, there could, technically, even if there was 5 other competitors doing exactly what we're doing, but we don't, everybody has their own different way, their own niche, their own version, their own look and feel. This is a huge market. People that are looking to make money on the side, or people that are looking to take bookings, is a huge industry. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there's already, there's 50 other companies that are offering booking services and apps and calendar apps and stuff, but just not everybody's doing it the same way we're doing. But even if they were, you're right, there is a huge market out there, and really, there's room for multiple people to be successful. The other point I just want to make on that also is Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, and I've quoted him before on this. He says, if you're not embarrassed from your first launch, then you launch too late. Right? Because going back on what you said about people having the fear, don't have fear. You got to move forward. And I talk about this in my book as well. Don't be afraid. Just go out and do, right? So, and don't worry about what other people say. And I think that's helped me, because in my whole life, I never cared about what anybody said. I didn't care what my teacher said. I just did what I felt was best for me. And so, as an entrepreneur, that's actually helped me, because you do need thick skin sometimes, because there is a lot of rejection, right. and sometimes there's failures. Every successful entrepreneur has failed in the past. There's just no such thing as, I shouldn't say no such thing. Maybe there's, a handful that's been successful in their first attempt. But there are VC firms out there that won't invest in somebody that hasn't failed before. And Gary Vaynerchuk also always talks about failing and how good it is to fail. But the real failing is if you don't learn from how you failed. And the truth is, this company, I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and I've learned a lot from them. What I did with this company was everything I've learned and everything I talk about in my book, I'm using for Book Like a Boss. So I'm eating my own, what do they call eating your own cheesecake?
It's definitely not cheesecake, but
it's not cheesecake.
You're on the right line.
Eating my own dog food, I think.
Yeah, eating your own dog food. I never understood that, because I don't eat dog food, but
right,
whatever.
I also don't eat dog food. Maybe that's why I came up with cheesecake.
So after the research stage, Nachum, what was next? What was the next thing? Okay, now you know that the idea is a solid idea and it's got legs, and you've got your date to launch, right? What's the next step? So first of all, the date to launch thing wasn't, you set guidelines and you set goals, and when you're speaking to your team, because everybody wants to stay motivated, but you got to have passion for the idea. But it was funny, because as I got this email from Rabbi Dan's sister, right? It was around the same time that David became available. And so it was just like tremendous Hashgacha Protis. So it's just like how amazing how Hashem works. It's all about timing, and Hashem just put it together. So and I talk about this in my book also. You have to understand what your weaknesses are. And once you understand what your weaknesses are, you know what you need, that you may need someone to make up for that. And whether that's taking in a partner or hiring somebody. And I go through this in detail in my book, about the pros and cons of every stage and what you should do and how you should do it. But David is somebody I've worked for in the past, and his integrity is 1,000%, and his skills are 1,000%, and he's somebody I enjoy as a person and as a friend. Right. So it was just great timing, and it just worked out well. And then after we got started, I'd say probably about 3 months in the process, we said, hey, we need a designer. And I said, you know what? I want to build a solid team here, because the foundation of any successful company is the team and the people behind it. And so I said, we could have hired a designer, from Upwork or someone local. But we said, we want somebody that's going to be part of this. And it's funny, the day we met with Lloyd was the day he just finished. He was working for Green Smoke as a consultant for, I think, 6 months or so.
they had a going away party for him, and we met him right after the going away party for Green Smoke.
Wow.
In the same restaurant. Like he finished his thing and he came over to our table and he loved the idea, and we saw that he was like the perfect person, and his design skills are unbelievable, and there's always going to be, ongoing design work and marketing stuff. So,
right. So after the research,
Hashgacha Protis.
So after the research stage, you build the team around that.
You build the team, and you start building, right? So the first thing, like Dov, I have to take, I have to write out my vision to Dov. David's a phenomenal programmer, but I had to tell him what to program. And I said, this is how it's going to work, and this is how step A, step B, what's the process, what's the idea, what's the vision, and I actually have audio recordings I've done where I got pumped up and excited, and I would just record like a 10-15 minute audio thing that I would then send to David and send to Lloyd, just going over my vision, just so that everybody understands like where we're headed and what the direction is.
Right. You talk about a vision, Nachum, but did you put together like a proper business plan with a spreadsheet with 5-year goals and projections and all that stuff that a lot of people seem to do?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's one of the things I'm doing differently this time as well. Is I've done the Dog and Pony Show, and I've done the PowerPoints and the going after investors and the projections. It's all to me a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Just don't talk about it. Don't, write it. Just do it.
Just do it.
This is one of the things that we did with this company, is that we self-funded it, in the beginning for sure, to get us to the stage that we're at. Mm-hmm. Right. And we didn't write a business plan. I'm not into writing business plans. And first of all, when it comes to Excel docs, I'm horrible. I mean, that's one of the things that I don't like the details. I'm not a detail person. I'm a visionary person. I'm an idea person. I'm a team builder person, a marketer, go out and do and build and create. And that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I love to do.
I love whiteboards. Those whiteboards. I love whiteboards. You just, draw a plan up on a whiteboard and then boom. Ready to go.
No, so it all started. Dov and I, we just started going back and forth. I guess it was a lot. We both daven in the same place, so we would meet for like 15-minute meetings after davening, and then obviously we'd spend a lot of time Skyping and going back and forth. And David he's such a pro. David is very rare, because not only is he a phenomenal programmer, but he's also a product manager and a project manager. So like, I don't need that guy in between. He could just manage the whole process himself, and he'll take my ideas and he'll structure it himself in what steps to take. And he's just, again, I can't speak highly enough about him. He's just a phenomenal guy. I've been blessed to have someone on board like him, blessed to have someone like Lloyd on board. And I can't wait, as we're looking to build out the rest of our team. I can't wait, we're not just, we're going to be taking hiring very, very seriously. Right. But, because the team is foundation. And again, this comes from a lot of mistakes I've made in the past. In other businesses, in other areas that, and again, as I go through my book, be careful who you take in as partners, and be careful, who you take in as investors, and know what your goals are and know how to go after them and be passionate. And that's why I'm not just preaching about my book because I want people to buy it, although I do want people to buy it. Right. But it's really, the feedback I've gotten from people, and then I'm not talking about friends, I'm talking about people that have gone to stores and bought it, has been phenomenal. I'm getting emails every day now from people saying that was really great, really encouraged me. You say it how it is. I had a friend of mine, who bought a copy, and he says to me, a guy comes into my office. He's a therapist, and he sees the book, and he picks it up and he just drops it down. And so my friend Eli Behar, he says, why'd you just drop it down like that? He says, I don't need these books, Ami Magazine, Mishpacha, and all these things. Whenever they talk about entrepreneurship, they always talk about how great it is and how exciting it is and being passionate about it and stuff, but they don't tell you the real side of it. That's right. And Eli says, pick up the book again. That's exactly what the book is not. The book tells you and goes through the details, the risks that are involved, and what you have to be careful for and what you have to watch out for, and that 4 out of 5 businesses end up failing. Right. And entrepreneurship is not for everybody. That's exactly what the purpose of the book is. And in a way, I am trying to scare off people because, I don't want to see people lose money or spend time or get into fights with family members that they borrowed money from that they couldn't pay back because, it was just a wrong idea or they just didn't do the proper steps. So that's really, why I'm in love with the book so much. The feedback has been so great about it.
Right. Amazing. And so you built this team, you've got the product, you've done the market research, you've had the idea. What's the next step after you've built the team and you built up the product?
Well, then you launch.
Well, I know, but I'm saying in terms of marketing it, how did you get it out there?
Oh, so again, we haven't started that process yet. The one thing I did is that I've been aching, I'm a marketer and I'm a visionary and I hate, and I have no patience for anything. Unfortunately, it's one of my chasarons is that I don't have a lot of patience. So I just want to get this out there. Mm-hmm. And I kept telling David, we got to get it out. And originally we were not going to launch it until we had all 3 plans working. But after the basic plan was working, I said, you know what, that's it. I got to tell some people. I just can't handle anymore. Plus, the feedback we want from our initial people is so important. You know, we actually have like a 5-stage launch process.
Okay, take us through that.
Okay, so the first stage is 10 people. Just send it to 10 people that you trust, people that you know, and just say, what is your initial feedback? Do you understand what we do from the website? What do you think of it? Go through the process. What's the feedback? And through that, we actually got tremendous things that we may have missed, or maybe that because we're so into it, so we understand things, but there were things that we tweaked because people weren't getting it exactly, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So after that first 10, then we did it to another 10 people, or another 20 people, I should say. And then we got more feedback. And after that, and we made some tweaks, I said, you know what? In about mid-September, in about another month from now, we'll have all the options. We'll have a lot more features going, probably less than that, but we'll have all the plans working, and probably more currencies and stuff like that. But I couldn't wait anymore. I said, David, I'm telling people. I said, I can't hold back anymore.
Right,
and so I did this one live video, Facebook live video, I guess about 4 days ago. And from that, we got another 40, 50 signups.
Wow.
And again, it wasn't really marketing it. I didn't really want people to start marketing it, I just wanted my core people that view my content to get their feedback. And again, just posting something on Facebook doesn't mean you're targeting your market. Obviously it's not, but I wanted more people to give us feedback. And a lot of people, took us up on that and, launched the site and gave us feedback. And I'm so grateful to them because I talk about it in the book, get feedback from people, learn what people want,
But what's very interesting, Nachum, about the way you did it was you sent it to just 10 people. A lot of people, when they launch, they just go all out and they send it to their whole list, their whole...
Big mistake. It's a big mistake.
Why do that?
Because you want to make sure that if you send it to 10 people and 7 out of 10 say something, then that means if you send it to 100 people, that means 70 people are going to have a negative view of what you're doing.
Right.
Right. So that would be foolish to do. Just, get the feedback, tweak, make sure that, when you're the first experience and the first, look that the potential customer has, and we're not going after customers right now. I didn't launch, I'm purposely holding back. Obviously I'm involved in different groups. And I have connections with big people in the industry, in the entrepreneurial industry or in the side gigging industry. But I'm not telling them about it yet because I don't want them to see it yet. But if people, if you go through this process and you make the tweaks and you see what people are saying, so it's so valuable to us.
Right.
So we're doing that, and then we're launching. And as we're doing that, we're getting ready for our next launch. So in about September, we're going to phase 3 of our launch, which is 100 people, just 100 people. That's in September. And those 100 people are going to be actually people that we feel, 50 of them will be people that we feel are looking for a side gig, and 50 of them will be people that already have a business that may be looking for a solution such as this.
Okay, so for those listening right now that want to be part of those first 100, what do they need to do?
You know what? You could sign up today. Just go to booklikeaboss.com and it's live, and you could sign up for an account. And we're going to be updating everybody as new features come out and, et cetera. But so I guess those who are listening, if you want to be part of the 100, you can be part of the 100 today. Although
Amazing.
we're not going after you today.
Right. Right.
But
I hope
feel free to sign up.
You still feature me on the front page, right? No.
Oh yeah, you look great. You make our whole website.
Okay, great. You know what I find truly inspiring, and this is, I think, one of the biggest lessons that I take home, is that you've been doing a lot of things, right? You've been running a podcast, you've written the book, you've been doing the webinars, you've been building your email list, and now you've finally got the product that's the multi-million-dollar opportunity. This is like the scalable business. There's no ceiling here. You can go all the way. And what's exciting is that you don't even need to spend $1 on marketing, because just your existing audience that you've built up, the trust, they like you, they know you, they trust you. You've got unlimited resources. You've got a huge network. And I think what I would take as somebody who's listening to this podcast is that it's so crucial to start building your list. Building your audience is your biggest asset.
1,000%. And I did a podcast episode called Networking, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I'll link to as well. But I talk about networking in my book. And you're right. I just gave, a presentation to Nextdoor on branding and on networking and how important it is. And it's so true, because even if you don't, and also treating people with respect and being good to people, and because you never know when they're, first of all, it's just menschlichkeit, it's just derech haTorah to do things nice and to be a good person. Right. But always comes back, in the future. So,
Interestingly, I just did a solo episode on my podcast also, which I share the 6 steps to rapidly growing your network. So if the listeners want to check that out as well.
We'll definitely link to it in the show notes.
Very cool. Just before we wrap up, this incredible episode, Nachum, what would be your number one advice to those listening that are starting or growing their business? What would be your number one advice to them that of all the things you've learned, what's stuck out for you?
So two things. One, I want to backtrack just on one point, because I think it's super important. You said about this $1 million idea and it could be make millions and stuff like that. So one of the things I've learned, and I've done a lot of hype, in my years, because I've always get excited about a project and stuff, and they haven't always succeeded. Even with Mianzi, which was such a painful episode for me. Right. I learned so much from it, but I didn't want to hype anymore. So with this company, I told David and I told Lloyd, and I wasn't necessarily planning on saying this, but I told them, I said, listen, our goal is not to make millions of dollars. Our goal is to get 10,000 paid clients in a year. That's what our goal is. Don't think about the big visions. Don't think about the exits. Don't think about the VCs coming after you. I said, we're going to do this. We're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy doing it, and we're going to, and our goal and our focus is just going to be to get to 10,000 paying clients, right? So, with that motivation, with that in mind, it sort of brings us down to earth. So that's a very important point. I don't want, don't be careful of hyping things up too much and getting too excited, because then if you do fail, which is more likely than not, although everything obviously is min hashamayim, you don't want to get too burnt out. So that's number one. Number two, in answering your question, I think, and this is what is the whole essence of being a Frum Entrepreneur, right? Being a Frum Entrepreneur means that that everything is 100% from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? If you think working that extra hour instead of learning the daf is going to make you more successful, it's simply not true. If you think making an extra sales call instead of calling your mother and just asking her how she is, and you're going to be more successful from that, it's just not true. Hashem gave us guidelines, and this is also the other main reason. I'm surprised I didn't say this earlier about the book, is that in my 25 years of being an entrepreneur, I've seen entrepreneurs, Jewish Frum entrepreneurs, that have this attitude of, that's not how business is done, or this is how business is done, and they don't realize that there's halachas, tons of halachas involved. For example, you have to pay somebody on time. Right. And I go into some of these stories in the book. Well, if you don't have, if you need money for marketing and it comes to expense of not paying somebody on time, well, because al pi derech, how quote unquote business works, is that you need that money for marketing, you're doing the wrong thing. Right. And I've seen people that have broken contracts, investors that have done that look like the most erliche yidden, and sadly they're just not. Right. They just don't follow derech haTorah. And so even though you may be successful in business, if you don't follow derech haTorah, it's coming at an expense. There's no such thing as a free ride. There's no such thing as not doing things correct according to what Hashem wants and still being successful. It's just, you may be, if you become very successful here, it's going to be taken out from your world to come, right? And there's always a cheshbon. There's no such thing as tricking the system. The system is Hashem is perfect. The Torah is perfect. There's rules and regulations for every step and every process of our life. And the sooner we learn that and the sooner we implement that into our businesses, the more chances of success, not only in this world, but in the world to come.
Well said. Nachum, this has been an incredible episode, very inspiring as well as practical, and I'm sure now your audience has got to know you better. Thank you for letting me pick your brain, and now you've inspired me to go call my mother. So,
Daniel, thank you again for taking your time. I know that you're also busy with incredible projects and things that are going on. So thank you for taking the time. And guys, please check out DanielGefen.com. Check out his show, Can I Pick Your Brain? Which, did I come up with the name or did I just come up with the branding for it?
It was my name. Don't steal it, okay?
All right, fine. But I did help you with the branding.
Yeah, you would have called it Can I Pick Your Idiot Brain? So I'm glad you didn't call it.
Anyway, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to my whole audience, and till the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Frum Entrepreneur Podcast with Nachum Kligman.